This is David Waters from the Gators Breakdown podcast, back with another edition of Talking with Troupe here on Gators Breakdown. Ben, we're coming, coming here off of a 24-20 Gator victory over Miami. Some of the fan base is split, some of the media is split on Florida's performance in this game. What's your overall thoughts on the Gators 24-20 victory over Miami?
I think it kind of went as I thought it would. I mean, people be forgetting the fact that, listen, man, this is college football. I mean, we forget the fact that while college football was supposed to start this week, we got pushed back to the 24th, and there are no inter-squad scrimmages. There are no preseason games. You got to go out there and hopefully what you've been doing in practice, you get to go out there and show it, on the field. And it kind of went as expected. I was very, very impressed with the young guy, with the redshirt freshman Williams from Miami. When you talk about a defense that had 10 sacks, probably should have had, probably 15, 16 sacks. I think that Felipe Franks, he played okay. I mean, and the people are going to talk about what he did do with the fumble, with the interception at the end of the game. But look, it's much easier to go back to the drawing board after a win than after a loss. But and as far as the fans, as far as the media, it's Florida. I mean, Felipe Franks, if he wouldn't have said a word, everybody go talk about the sideline ran or after the touchdown. Felipe is Felipe. And I always go off the temperament of Dan Mullen. Dan Mullen, he always said, look, man, we got to go back and, go through some things, man. But he said, look, I think we went out there and did what we was asked to do against about as good as a defense as Florida's going to see throughout the course of the year. I mean, Quarterman and Peyton, those guys. But, hey, man, 24-20, they probably should have left a couple of points out there, a couple of plays out there. But, so far so good, man. Game one, a week earlier, I'll take it.
Ben, you go back last week. We mentioned you were part of Miami's comeback in 2003 in a game Florida coulda, shoulda, woulda won. And you go back and look at this game, and you also go back and look at 2013, where Florida had a turnover fest and lost to Miami. This time you had a turnover fest, but you found a way to win this game. Going back to your game in 2003 with that Miami comeback, and the last time these two teams matched up. I mean, hey, right now, a win is a win.
Absolutely. And the whole thing about it was, I mean, back in 2003, man, we went through all three quarterbacks. Started the game off with Engel, ended up going to Chris Leak, and I finished with Gavin Dickey with a game that we should have won. You talk about 2013, where we just couldn't get out of our own way as far as like turning the football over. And to be able to overcome those two turnovers. I mean, Malik Davis has been a long time since he's been playing football. Next time he'll know. Don't try to pick that fumble up, man. Just fall on it. When you talk about, the quarterback, running back, exchange as far as like P. Ryan and Felipe, just pull that ball out. Felipe throw the ball to ground. It's probably going to be a touchdown, but we overcame it. And obviously the last turnover at the end of the game just showed how good of a defense we got with Zuniga and Grenard and those guys. But you got to live with the result. Everybody's going to talk about what Florida didn't do. What Florida did do is get the win. And then we talking so much about Miami team. The strength of their team is the same way the strength of Florida's team, the defense. I mean, Quarterman, Pinckney, and those guys, Garvin, those guys coming off that end, they're going to be a really, really good defense throughout the course of the year. But I can live with the fact that you're going to make mistakes because you got to have something to kind of show these young guys going back, even though they get a week off, to say, fellas, we can't have this moving forward. To be able to go where we're trying to go and do what we're trying to do and accomplish what we're trying to accomplish, you cannot have those turnovers, but the ability to overcome it. I think Dan Mullen's always talking about overcoming adversity. We was able to overcome it, man, and we came out with a dub.
And Bill, were you caught by surprise as much as I was about the lack of running from Florida? Look, we know this offensive line, bringing in 4 new starters, but 2 guys with some experience. But hey, Miami was selling out. Trying to stop the run. P. Ryan still averaged over 4 yards a carry. But heck, Florida only ran 54 plays. It's hard to get that run game going, hard to get into a groove with the turnovers and the just kind of lack of maybe focus at times from the offense.
Yeah, I was, and I think like you mentioned, the game kind of dictated. I mean, when you talk about those 2 fumbles, that's in that pick, that's taking away drive, that's taking away possessions. But I think sometimes going into the game, everybody's talking about all these receivers, with Grimes and Jefferson and Hammond and Swain, and sometimes you get too caught up in that. Yeah, we got a plethora of receivers, which I do think that when you look at the fact that Kyle Pitts helped set up those last 2 touchdowns, you still want to do what you do, and what we do is run the football consistently, or just handing the ball off keeps the defense honest, keeps those linebackers up to the line of scrimmage, which sets up the play action pass. But yeah, I think it just kind of got us out of rhythm, which it's going to do that sometimes. You go into the game, you want to kind of have that 50-50 balance. Plus, it keeps Felipe out of harm's way sometimes. But, yeah, I just think because of the Florida game and the turnovers, it kind of made us go to the passing game more than the running game.
Ben, I don't think, man, we can talk much about these 10 sacks or talk too much about these 10 sacks that the defense come up with. We knew looking at this game where Florida had a big advantage was this defensive line, this front seven, and the young Miami offensive line. This was a mismatch that came to fruition by the time the game ended Saturday night.
Man, I was very, very impressed. With Grenard and Zuniga. And, those guys, man, Grenard was the guy that obviously understood Todd Grander's system, and coming over from Louisville, people talking about how good of a player would he be able to be, man. That constant pressure was incredible. We live in the backfield. I mean, and I keep going back to forget the sacks that we got. Just talk about the ones that we didn't get, the ones that, Williams, let's face it, man, he's very, very slippery. He was a guy that was able to come out of there, come out of some of those, but you feel good about it. Yes, people are going to talk about how young the Miami offensive line was, but we took advantage of that. It's one thing to have a young Miami offensive line, but we made those guys look young. So I'm very, very encouraged about these guys moving forward. And look, man, 10 sacks, first game of the year against a team that's going to be only going to get better down the line. Hopefully we stay healthy, but I was very, very impressed by those guys.
And Ben, what do you make of the missed tackles? I'm not trying to make an excuse for Florida here and looking at it from orange and blue glasses, but we saw last year early on in the season Florida kind of have some struggles tackling as well, and then you have this game pushed up. There's a lot the way the game of football is going now, and there's not a lot of hitting in practice. I kind of chalk it up to more than that, but that's not to excuse it. You still got to tackle better than what we saw Saturday night, but I do think there are reasons for it.
Yeah, it's the first game. I mean, it's one of those things to where we talk about, guys getting pushed up a week means everything gets pushed up. That means that, look, man, the game plans get pushed up. We don't have as much time as we used to. And you're going to see that. Now, I don't like – now, some of them are inexcusable. I think on the long touchdown run, with DJ Dallas, man, when you go back to the tape, Marco and CJ, listen, you got to keep your eyes open. You can't just think you're going to bring down the back with your shoulder. And I understand that, CJ and, Marco and those guys, they paid to go out there and cover guys, but you still got to be a willing tackler. But it's the first game. And the thing about it is it's jitters for everybody. And it's easy for us to, be spectators, speculating what they should have done. But it's one of those things that it's good that you get 2 weeks. So it's good that they get that extra week to kind of go out there and say, hey, we got to work on our tackling, man, because fortunately y'all guys on the perimeter, y'all going to have to come up and make tackles. But it's a necessary evil, man. It's the first game. And, I just say, I wonder how many other teams going to be talking about how their teams lack tackling or could have tackled better after their first week.
Exactly. And Ben, kind of, finishing up this little bit of Miami talk here. Are you more concerned after this game, or still feel the same about the Gators as they head into the bye week?
I'm not concerned about it. Because the whole thing about it is, they won the game. And it's yes, we got mistakes that can be taken care of. You can overcome those things. As I mentioned, quarterback running back exchange with P. Ryan and Felipe down the goal line. That's something you're going to get better at. Malik Davis first action in a long time, just didn't get the snap, and something that Dan Mullen said. If Felipe is able to pull that ball, that's probably a touchdown to Grimes. If Davis able to get that pitch, that's probably a touchdown to him. And then obviously you just can't have Felipe just can't have that mental mistake at the end. If it's nothing there, just throw the ball away. And no, man, I don't get too high and too low with this thing. As far as being a fan of this thing, not being able to really have anything to do with the outcome of the game. It's just football, man. We can't separate it. When you talk about rooting for the Gators, man, it's hard to separate, overreaction from what actually is going on. But I always go back to the temperament of Dan Mullen. He's not worried. He's not over concerned. Neither am I.
All right, Ben, right before we finish up here, early bye week, we kind of wondered what this would mean, with the game being pushed up and Florida getting 3 bye weeks, and now how this game played out. Florida gets an early bye week. And I think you kind of alluded to it earlier, but there are some things to work on. You think this early bye week is going to help the Gators or hurt the Gators? Do you think they would probably rather, of course they probably won't go play this weekend anyway, just because the game got pushed up from this coming up weekend. But how do you think the bye week comes into play here?
I think it helps them out a lot because they get that week back. As I mentioned, everybody else starts the regular week. I mean, obviously, you got Clemson and Georgia Tech tonight with the opening game, but it's still the opening week. This is week 1. They had to go in week 0, so the week that they didn't get, they actually get to make it up, and they kind of get to go back and reassess. I mean, you count to see who's still healthy. I think it's going to benefit them a lot, man, because now you got something to go off of. It's easy to just go back to the tape when you're going up against each other day in and day out, but the defense knows our plays, the offense knows the defense calls. You kind of know what to expect from each other. Now that you got a true barometer of this is what it's going to take against a team that's probably going to contend in the ACC. I wouldn't be surprised if Miami is one of the last teams standing to play Clemson at the end of the year in the ACC championship game. You got a team that got good players on both sides, and you got something to really assess. I think it's going to benefit Florida tremendously, man, and hopefully they'll go back and really kind of look themselves in the mirror and say, all right, man, you're never ever as good as you think you are. You're never as bad as they think you are. You kind of middle of the road, man. Let's get better from last week.
All right, that is Talking with Troupe here on News4Jax.com and News4Jax.com exclusive. Ben, let all of our listeners out know where they can find you.
Always follow me on Instagram and Twitter at BenTroupe84, and follow my show, man, 3 and Out at Pigskin Radio.
All right, that's in the coastal Georgia area, Waycross, Blackshear. You can get all that, and Ben, it's online. You can stream it online too, is right?
Absolutely. You can always go to ESPNCoastal.com to stream it online.
All right, that is Ben Troupe here on Talking with Troupe on Gators Breakdown.